Hey everyone, I'm a 29-year-old athletic American guy who works as an influencer. I decided to travel around Europe and ended up in Poland. Honestly, it was like a movie when I met my wife. I was wandering through the old town of Krakow, soaking up the vibe and snapping pics for my followers, when I stumbled into this narrow alleyway. That's where I saw her, my future wife, cornered by two sketchy dudes. She looked freaked out, and instinct kicked in. I'm tall, built, and not the type to back down. So I stepped in and told the guys to get lost. They didn't put up much of a fight and took off, probably realizing they didn't stand a chance. She was so relieved and grateful. Turns out she speaks English fluently because she studied in Britain, and her British accent is just, wow, sexy as hell. On top of that, she was gorgeous, with long dark hair, striking blue eyes, and a smile that could light up the darkest room. I couldn't believe my luck. It felt like a scene straight out of a Hollywood movie. After that encounter, we started spending a lot of time together. She showed me around the city, introduced me to her favorite spots, and we even took a few weekend trips to the countryside. I was falling for her hard and fast. She was everything I didn't even know I was looking for. She didn't smoke, didn't drink, and had no tattoos. Yes, that's important to me. As we got to know each other better, I was like, wow, she doesn't drink, check. Then I found out she doesn't smoke. And I thought, another check. I was thinking, oh my God, she's perfect. And when we made love, yes, love, not just sex because it's different, honestly. When you make love with someone you care about, it's magical. Anyway, I found out she didn't have any tattoos, and I thought to myself, oh my God, how lucky can I get? I thought she was perfect. We had this incredible connection. Our conversations were effortless, and we shared similar values and dreams for the future. We talked about everything, our careers, families, childhood memories, and even our quirks. She had this way of making me feel like the most important person in the world. I was head over heels in love. But as I write this, I start to remember there was one red flag, but I seemed to ignore it, like I was blinded by her beauty. I remember she used to get calls from guys with different names. I'm not great at Polish, but she taught me a bit of the language. Now I recall that these were some guys calling her, but she never answered. Honestly, I don't remember if I asked her about it or not. I don't remember, but I didn't suspect that something very bad was about to happen. Anyway, 6 months went by, and I thought I had finally found the one. You know what I mean, the girl you can start a family with, and everyone would talk about what a great couple you are. We would travel, share our life stories, and build a community of friends who admired our love story. I envisioned us growing old together, sharing our adventures, and maybe even having kids one day. So I proposed to her, and we celebrated it in Hawaii. Yeah, it was awesome and super expensive. But you get me, it was the best time of my life. I'm writing this now with a tear in my eye, even though I'm a bearded, grown, athletic guy. I remember her relatives came from Poland. Her parents are wonderful people. Honestly, it felt like I was living in paradise. We spent our days exploring the island, lounging on the beach, and enjoying romantic dinners by the ocean. I felt like the luckiest guy in the world. After we got married, our life together seemed perfect. We moved into a cozy apartment in Warsaw and started building our life together. Weekends were filled with laughter and love. We hosted dinners for friends, went on spontaneous road trips, and spent lazy Sundays cuddling on the couch watching movies. It was everything I had ever dreamed of. We talked about starting a family and what our future would look like. We were both excited about the possibilities and couldn't wait to see what life had in store for us. Our love felt unbreakable, and I was convinced that nothing could ever come between us. So she got pregnant. Honestly, I wasn't really keen on having a child, even though we had the money and were at the right age. But since I'm against abortions, we decided to keep the baby. It was a whirlwind of emotions for me. On one hand, the thought of being a dad freaked me out. I was so used to our carefree life of traveling, partying, and just being spontaneous. A kid meant responsibility, sleepless nights, and a lot of changes. But on the other hand, seeing her face light up with excitement when she found out she was pregnant made me want to try. She was glowing, and there was this new kind of happiness between us. We started planning, talking about baby names, looking at cribs and tiny clothes. It was overwhelming, but also kind of exciting. At that time, we were living in the Netherlands. It was a beautiful country, and we had settled into a nice routine there. Our apartment overlooked the canals, and we loved taking evening walks along the water, grabbing a coffee or a bite to eat from the local cafes. 2 months had passed since we found out about the pregnancy, and her parents suggested we visit them in the city where my wife is from. Naturally, we agreed. They were thrilled about becoming grandparents and wanted to celebrate with us. Plus, they had this idea of throwing a small party to announce the pregnancy to their extended family and friends. When we arrived, it was a warm welcome. Her parents lived in a quaint, picturesque town that looked like something out of a fairy tale. Cobblestone streets, charming little houses, and everyone seemed to know each other. We stayed in their big old house that had this cozy, homey vibe. Her mom cooked amazing meals, and her dad kept pouring me shots of their local vodka, insisting it was a family tradition. One evening, we were walking around the city, soaking in the atmosphere, when we bumped into a girl and a guy. The girl turned out to be my wife's old friend Anna. They screamed and hugged, and it was like they hadn't seen each other in ages. The guy with Anna was her boyfriend, Piotr. We all hit it off immediately. Piotr and I had a lot in common. Turns out he was in the same line of work as me. We talked about our jobs, shared a few laughs, and before we knew it, we were making plans to hang out more. One night, we decided to hit up a local bar. It was one of those cozy, dimly lit places with a great vibe. We started with a few drinks, and the conversation was flowing. Piotr and I were getting along like old friends. But as the night went on, the drinks kept coming, and things got a bit out of hand. We were all pretty wasted, and Piotr started making some weird comments. At first, I brushed it off as drunk talk, but then he said something that made my blood boil. In his drunken rage, he blurted out, "How does it feel to have a kid with a slut?" I saw red. Without thinking, I swung and knocked him out right there. The bar went silent, and the next thing I knew, Piotr was on the floor, bleeding, and people were shouting. Someone called an ambulance, and before I knew it, the police arrived and took me away. As I sat there in the police station, handcuffed and sobering up, reality started to hit me. What the hell had I done? While waiting for the police to process everything, I started asking people in the bar if they knew my wife. I didn't say, "Do you know my wife?" But I mentioned her name. Out of the roughly 40 people there, one guy said he knew her and that she worked at a strip club. My heart sank. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion. If it weren't for the alcohol, I might have had a heart attack right then and there. Sitting in that police station, as the alcohol wore off, I felt like my whole world was collapsing. Until that moment, I had this rough idea of my future. Married life, a kid on the way, building a family. But suddenly everything was falling apart. It felt like the ground was being ripped out from under me, and I had no idea what to believe or who to trust anymore. My mind was racing, trying to piece together any signs I might have missed, any clues that could have warned me about this. When she finally arrived at the station, I saw a different person standing there. Her face was pale, and her eyes were filled with worry. But honestly, I was really glad to see her, because I hoped that maybe she did work at a strip club, but didn't sleep with people for money. That tiny shred of hope was the only thing holding our relationship together at that moment. I needed to believe that there was some explanation, some way to make sense of all this. So, Reddit, please tell me what to do, huh? What would you do if you were in my shoes? How do you even begin to process something like this? I feel like I'm losing my mind here. People ask me what happened with that guy. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that they immediately picked him up and applied ice. So he's fine. Let's just say we sorted things out, and I didn't go to jail. It was a mess at first, but the bar's owner knew Piotr and vouched for me, explaining it was just a drunken fight that got out of hand. They decided not to press charges. But despite sorting things out, Piotr didn't tell me anything more about my wife. He was tight-lipped, which made me even more suspicious. Still, we agreed to meet again, and I was hoping he might open up later on. Following Reddit's advice, I started asking my wife about what she did before we met. Oh, and I forgot to mention that I'm quite a wealthy person, and yes, my wife didn't work anywhere. She did some creative stuff like painting and photography, and we went to the gym together, but that's it. I consider myself a man who's the head of the family. As you might have guessed, I have conservative views, and I like beautiful girls. So she lived with me like a princess. She never had to worry about money or work. I took care of everything. But from her, I didn't learn anything new. She didn't say she worked in a strip club, no, she didn't mention anything like that. I asked her how many partners she had before me, and she said she had 2 boyfriends. I believed her, and honestly, I wouldn't have had a problem if she had more, up to about 8, would have been totally fine with me. So, I was trying to find out what she used to do, but it was difficult. I was counting on that guy I punched, but he didn't really want to meet me and kept postponing. Every time we scheduled something, he'd come up with an excuse to cancel. It was frustrating as hell. I started to feel like I was hitting a dead end, and my suspicions were driving me crazy. Yes, I know it's not right, but she left me no choice. I looked through her phone and saw her nude photos, which she hadn't sent me. But that wasn't particularly strange. She took pictures of herself all the time. She's beautiful, and I get that she might want to keep some photos just for herself. Then I checked Instagram and saw her conversations with other guys. But this was before we met. I found messages from about 2, 3 guys. I wrote down their Instagram handles. These messages were flirty, but nothing too explicit. Still, it made me wonder what else she might be hiding. I decided to write to one of them, just saying, "Hi." He replied an hour later, "Hi, do I know you?" I wrote, "Do you know my wife?" And he stopped responding. I thought, maybe he doesn't want to revisit the past, maybe they dated. What was really strange was that I checked his account, scrolled all the way down, and saw he had been married for 7 years. My wife was talking to him when he was married, which was the first serious red flag that something was wrong. But I still didn't believe my wife was a slut. Maybe they were just friends, I told myself. I was grasping at straws, trying to hold on to any hope I could find. But what he wrote back was terrible. He started sending a bunch of messages like, "I'm married, what do you want? Do you want money? I have a child." His panic was palpable, even through the screen. I knew this was going to end badly, so I arranged a meeting with this guy. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. We met at a quiet cafe. He was nervous, fidgeting, and kept looking around as if he expected someone to jump out and confront him. When we finally sat down, he told me everything. She was a stripper who had this service to continue in a hotel. To be fair, she was an expensive escort. She was his mistress. He paid her to sleep only with him. He was very scared, offering me money to keep quiet. The funniest part was that we communicated through a translator app because his English was very bad. Honestly, his face showed such confusion. I can only imagine what he was thinking. Some American knows he cheated on his wife. It added some absurdity to the whole situation. It was almost amusing to find out my wife was a slut through Google Translate. Hearing him spill the details was like getting punched in the gut repeatedly. He told me how he would book her for entire weekends, how she would pretend to be this perfect girlfriend. He even mentioned a few hotels they frequented, and it all started to make sense. The late-night texts, the mysterious phone calls, the times she'd disappear for hours. Everything clicked into place, and I felt like a complete idiot for not seeing it sooner. So here I was, sitting across from this guy who had paid my wife for sex, trying to wrap my head around the fact that my entire relationship was built on lies. He kept apologizing, saying he didn't know she was married now, that he thought she had left that life behind. But his words meant nothing to me. All I could think about was how I had been duped, how the woman I loved had been living a double life. I feel like I'm losing my mind here. How do I even begin to process something like this? Do I confront her with what I know? Do I leave and never look back? I need your advice, your experiences, anything that might help me figure out my next move. So basically, my wife is an expensive Polish slut who's pregnant with my child. Let that sink in for a minute. I found out the woman I loved, the mother of my future child, used to sell her body for cash. It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I felt betrayed, disgusted, and utterly lost. You know what I did? I called my best friend who lives in Miami, booked the next flight, and flew to him, telling my wife that I went to Paris for business. I needed to get the fuck out of there and clear my head. In Miami, I went on a sex spree. I slept with anything that moved. In about a week, I slept with more than 20 girls and met a big-ass blonde who I hooked up with for another week. On one hand, it was awful, just mindless fucking to numb the pain. But on the other hand, it started to make me feel that there are still other women out there, that she's not the only one in the world. Miami was wild. My friend took me to all the hottest clubs, and we partied like there was no tomorrow. I drowned my sorrows in booze, drugs, and sex. Every night was a blur of bodies, lights, and music. That blonde was something else. Tall, curvy, and insatiable. We spent days in bed, fucking like rabbits, and it felt good to lose myself in her. She didn't know my story, and I didn't care about hers. It was pure, unadulterated escapism. But honestly, when you don't see the person you love for a long time, you start to miss them even more. And I started to miss her. Even after all the shit I found out, I still missed her. I tried to kill that feeling. I read a lot of similar stories, and nothing good ever happens after cheating. But you know how our brains work. Like when you read such stories, you think, if I go back, things will be different. Like everything will be fine for me. I kept telling myself that maybe, just maybe, we could make it work. Maybe we could get past this and build a life together for our kid. It was a fucked up hope, but it was there, gnawing at the back of my mind. I want to address people who will defend her. You understand that she's not just a slut, she's also a liar. She should have told me something during all this time, don't you think? Huh? How can you build a relationship on lies? She had all this time to come clean, to tell me about her past, but she didn't. She kept me in the dark, making me believe she was someone she wasn't. It's not just the fact that she was a stripper and an escort, it's the betrayal, the deceit. How could I ever trust her again? So I decided to get revenge. I came to her with her parents. I didn't plan to humiliate her in front of relatives, because she's the mother of my child. I decided to call the closest circle of people, her parents and me. I stood up, asked everyone to sit down, and started telling them everything I found out, to her and her parents. They sat and listened, but since her parents didn't know English well, my wife translated at first. Then she started crying and ran away. It was fucking pathetic, watching her break down like that. I was angry, but a part of me felt sorry for her too. Then I wrote in the translator that their daughter provided sexual services for money. I saw how upset they were, and they were saying something, though I didn't understand a word. Her dad looked like he was about to have a heart attack, and her mom was sobbing uncontrollably. It was a shit show, but they needed to know the truth. They needed to see the real her, not the perfect daughter she pretended to be. Oh yeah, why did I decide to come back from Miami to Poland so quickly? I found out I have a son, and realized that he's the reason I want to do something with my life. When I found out my wife was a slut, all my plans collapsed. But when I found out I have a son, a new vision of the future appeared. I couldn't just walk away. I had to be there for him, to make sure he didn't grow up in the middle of this mess. He deserved better. So now I'm stuck in this fucked up situation, trying to figure out what to do next. Do I stay with her for the sake of our kid? Can I ever forgive her and move on? Or do I cut my losses and start over? I honestly don't know. My heart tells me one thing, and my head tells me another. I'm torn, and it's driving me insane. So many people wrote that I shouldn't go back to her, and of course I'm not going back to her. That's not even up for discussion. The trust is shattered, and there's no way I'm going to pretend it can be fixed. She showed me who she really is, and I'm done with that bullshit. I rented an apartment not far from where she is living with her parents. I blocked her card, well, not completely. I send her money to another card so she can eat well, because the baby isn't at fault for having a slut for a mother. The place I got is nice, small but cozy, with a great view of the city. It's my little sanctuary away from all the drama. I still remember the look on her face when she found out her card was blocked. She called me in a panic, and I calmly told her I'd make sure she and the baby had what they needed, but I wasn't funding her life of lies anymore. That shut her up real quick. I threw myself completely into work and sports. I needed to keep my mind busy and my body exhausted. I'm at the gym every morning, pushing myself harder than ever. There's something therapeutic about lifting weights and feeling the burn. Work has been my other escape. I dive into projects, staying late and taking on more than I probably should. Sometimes I call her parents to ask how she's doing, just to make sure she doesn't hurt herself. By the way, her parents are very nice people, and I feel really sorry for them. They're devastated by all this. They thought their daughter was an angel, and now they're faced with the truth. They've been supportive, though. They're just as concerned about the baby as I am. Many people wrote that I should divorce her, and of course I will do that, but not right now. We still go for walks sometimes, and you can already see her belly. It's surreal, watching her grow with my child inside her. She tries to hold my hand, talks about our future like nothing's changed. I play along for now, but my mind is made up. I don't see her in my future anymore. Everything I do now is for the baby. A divorce would be a big stress for her, and that stress could affect the baby. I'm not risking my child's well-being for anything. So for now, I play the role of the supportive husband, while inside, I'm counting down the days until I can cut her out of my life for good. My plan is to wait until she gives birth, and enough time has passed for her to stop breastfeeding. Then I'll file for divorce and try to take the baby from her, because I don't want the child living with that bitch. I've already talked to a lawyer, and I'm preparing everything to get full custody. It's going to be a battle, but I'm ready for it. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure my kid has a stable, loving home, away from her toxic influence. I read a lot of comments, and I'm very glad that you support me because it means I'm doing the right thing. It's comforting to know there are people out there who understand and back me up. This whole situation has made me question everything, but hearing from others who've been through similar shit and come out the other side gives me hope. One piece of advice really helped me. I don't remember exactly how it was written, but it was something like, to forget a girl who has captured your heart, you need to spend a lot of time with other women. So now, I've started spending time with a lot of new girls, and it really helps. Now I look at my wife differently. Yes, it's a great piece of advice. If someone reading this is in a similar situation, I recommend you use it. I've been going on dates, hooking up, and just enjoying myself. It's been liberating, a reminder that there are plenty of women out there who aren't lying, cheating sluts. One girl in particular stands out. Her name's Katya. She's fun, gorgeous, and most importantly, drama-free. We met at a bar one night, and it was an instant connection. We've been seeing each other casually, nothing too serious. But it's nice to have someone to talk to laugh with, to fuck without any strings attached. She knows about my situation, and she's been incredibly understanding. It's not love, not by a long shot, but it's a step in the right direction. So here I am, trying to rebuild my life piece by piece. It's not easy, and there are days when the weight of it all feels unbearable. But I keep pushing forward because I have to, for my kid, for myself. Every day is a struggle, but every day also brings a little bit of healing. There's still a long road ahead, and I know the hardest part is yet to come. The divorce, the custody battle, raising a child on my own, none of it's going to be easy. But I'm ready to face it head on. I've learned a lot through this mess. I've learned about betrayal, about resilience, about finding strength when you think you have none left. Reddit, thank you for your support and your advice. It means the world to me. If anyone else is going through something similar, know that you're not alone. It's a shitty, painful process, but you can get through it. Focus on what matters. Keep your head up, and don't let the bastards grind you down. We're stronger than we think, and there's always a way forward, even if it's hard to see right now. It's been a long time since my last post. Life has been a whirlwind, and I've barely had a moment to catch my breath. So much has happened, and I need to share it with you all. Your support has meant the world to me, and I hope this update finds you well. First off, my wife gave birth to a beautiful boy. Seeing him for the first time was a mix of overwhelming emotions. He's perfect, with tiny fingers and the most innocent eyes. Despite all the shit between me and his mother, I fell in love with him instantly. He's the reason I keep going, the reason I'm fighting through all this mess. Holding him in my arms made me realize that I have to be strong, not just for myself, but for him too. In the middle of all this chaos, I met a wonderful girl from Slovakia. Her name is Zuzana, and she's been a breath of fresh air. We met at a mutual friend's party, and we hit it off immediately. She's smart, funny, and stunningly beautiful. Most importantly, she's understanding and kind, something I desperately needed. We've been seeing each other for a few months now, and she's been my rock. She knows about my situation and supports me without judgment. Being with her has reminded me that there's still good out there, that I can still find happiness. Constant conflicts with my wife, though, have been a nightmare. Every conversation turns into a shouting match. She's still living with her parents, and every time I see her, it's like walking on eggshells. We argue about everything from money to visitation rights. She tries to manipulate me, using our son as leverage, and it takes everything in me not to lose my temper. It's exhausting, and I'm tired of the drama, but I have to keep my cool for the sake of my boy. I've been working closely with a lawyer to navigate this shitstorm. The legal process has been long and draining, but it's necessary. We're preparing for a custody battle, and I'm doing everything I can to be the best father possible. My lawyer is a pit bull, and she's been fantastic. She's helped me gather evidence, build a case, and keep my head straight through all of this. It's been a roller coaster, but having a good lawyer makes all the difference. Thanks to everyone who supported me through this. Your comments, messages, and advice have been invaluable. There were days when I felt like I couldn't go on, but knowing there were people out there who had my back kept me going. You guys have been my lifeline, and I can't thank you enough for that. P.S. The trial has already taken place, and I couldn't get full custody of the child. For some reason, in Poland, they prefer to leave the child with the mother, but overall, things turned out well. Let's just say I got my revenge. The court granted me significant visitation rights, more than my ex-wife expected. She's furious, but there's nothing she can do about it. I also managed to secure joint custody, so she can't make any major decisions without my consent. It's not full custody, but it's a win in my book. And the best part, I exposed her for what she is. The court saw the evidence of her past, and while it didn't completely sway the custody decision, it painted a clear picture of her character. Her parents are devastated, her social circle knows the truth, and she's lost the image she worked so hard to maintain. She's living in a hell of her own making, and I can't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. Now, I'm focused on my son. I want to be the best father I can be, to give him a stable, loving environment. Zuzana has been amazing, supporting me, and even bonding with my son. We're taking things one step at a time, building a future that's free of lies and betrayal. Hey everyone, I thought I wouldn't write anything more. But yes, this is my life. It's crazy how things can take unexpected turns, and here I am again with another update. Your support has been incredible, and I felt it was only right to share the latest developments with you all. First of all, my ex started using all sorts of illegal substances, and I didn't know about it. But when I found out, I immediately contacted the relevant authorities responsible for ensuring the well-being of children, and I told them that my ex was using drugs. It was a shock to find out she had spiraled so far down. Her parents were the ones who tipped me off. They found paraphernalia in her room and were desperate for help. They were scared for their daughter and even more terrified for their grandson. I knew I had to act fast. I gathered all the evidence I could, documented everything, and went straight to the authorities. It broke my heart to think that my son was living in such a toxic environment. I wasn't going to let her drag him down with her. I had my lawyer prepare for another battle in court, this time with a new sense of urgency and purpose. And so, we're back in court. On the right, my wife, an emerging drug addict, and on the left, a man who does sports, has a good income, and a beautiful girlfriend. Who do you think the court will give the child to, huh? Well, of course, to me. This is a victory. The hearing was intense. My ex looked like a shell of her former self, and it was clear to everyone in the room that she was unfit to take care of our son. The judge listened to both sides, but the evidence was overwhelming. My lawyer presented a rock-solid case, and the court had no choice but to grant me full custody. Seeing the gavel come down in my favor was one of the most relieving moments of my life. I couldn't believe it. I had finally won. My son was safe, and he would be with me, growing up in a stable environment. The court ordered my ex to undergo rehabilitation, and she was granted supervised visitation rights. It was the best possible outcome for everyone involved, especially for my boy. As they say, revenge is a dish best served cold. I made sure everyone knew how I deal with traitors. Word spread fast. Her social circle, our mutual friends, everyone knew what had happened. They saw her for who she really was, and they saw me rise from the ashes, stronger and more determined than ever. It felt good to reclaim my life and my dignity. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice and ensuring that my son would have a better future. Zuzana has been amazing through all of this. She stood by me, supported me, and even helped take care of my son. She's been a rock, and I can't imagine going through this without her. We're stronger than ever, and she's embraced the role of being a mother figure to my son. Seeing them together, happy and laughing, fills my heart with a joy I thought I'd lost forever. Thanks again to everyone who supported me. Your words of encouragement, your advice, and your stories helped me navigate this nightmare. I wouldn't have made it through without knowing there were people out there who understood, who cared. It's been a hell of a journey, but I've come out the other side stronger and more resilient. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, but with the right support and determination, you can hit them out of the park. Now my focus is on the future. I'm dedicated to being the best father I can be, to giving my son the life he deserves. He's my priority, and everything I do is for him. We're building a new life together, one filled with love, stability, and happiness. Susanna and I are taking things one day at a time, planning our future and dreaming of the possibilities. To anyone going through something similar, keep fighting. Don't give up. There's light at the end of the tunnel, even when things seem darkest. Focus on what matters, stay strong, and lean on those who support you. You're stronger than you think, and you can get through this. Life isn't perfect, and it never will be, but we can strive for our own version of happiness. So that's it for now. This chapter of my life has been closed, and I'm ready to write new ones filled with hope, love, and new beginnings. Thank you all for being part of my journey. Here's to brighter days ahead for all of us.